Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Adventures, and today we're doing part 9, so we're nearly up to the big old part 10. We're part 9 of our Jurassic World Evolution Accurate Dinosaur Mod Collection, or if that's a mouthful, just the Accurate Mod Collection. We take a look at some of the animals in game and the mods that have been made to make them look more like their real life fossil counterparts. So yeah, today we've got quite a few Ceratopsians and some really interesting science stuff, so I really hope you guys stick around, and hopefully you guys will enjoy. So let's see what we'll start with first here. We've got a lot of Ceratopsians. Here we've got Pseudoceratops, and we'll give it a look. That's quite nice. So let's get out of that and go into it. It's gonna run for the food. We'll wait. Oh, she. We'll get a good look at her when she's over there. Okay, let's have a look. We can see it's a lot less bulky than the original in the game, but it's still got quite bulky legs. So we can see the face looks quite nice. The kind of brow ridge here looks a lot more pronounced. You almost see scaling the Pseudoceratops. See, it looks very much like a bull or a gaur or something like that. I really like the look of that. It just gives it an interesting look. We can see also the nose ridge has been pronounced a wee bit more. And the beaks, the face has just been changed quite a bit to fit more the animal's actual real life anatomy. A little bit stubbier. And we can see the neck's been elongated a wee bit. The body's made quite a bit rounder. And we can see the tail's quite a bit shorter too. Ceratopsians in general have like this very compact body with these big frills. They're not all very similar, but generally just very compact bodies with these big frills. And we can see the feet here. Well, one thing that we can look at that's not accurate yet is obviously the toes. We can see all 5 digits have nails, and as I've mentioned multiple times, only the first 3 have nails. So these other 2 here would not have nails and would probably be like a weird... The feet of Ceratopsians would probably not look this elephantine-like. It'd be like a weird hoof shape going around. No, that looks quite cool. Other than that, it's pretty much spot on. We can see the brow and the back ridging, and this one's quite nice. And we'll watch it have it eat. And the Pseudoceratops is there. It was discovered recently. I think it was in 2014 or 15, somewhere around there. Maybe even a bit earlier. But it really just shows like how weird Ceratopsians really got with their head frills and their skulls. Just because, why not? It's so wacky. It's just so cool. Evolution really does a lot of weird things sometimes. Oh, now it's coming back again. Where are you running off to now? I will see you run off, and then we'll move on to the next one. So let's see, we've got Pentaceratops now. Now that was quite nice. Now this one doesn't really have too many changes to it. We'll see. Is he going for the water? We'll stop it when it gets there. So look, obviously they couldn't gallop in life, but we'll have a look here. You can see the toes again, they're not quite right, but other than that looks great. We can see the more compact form of Pentaceratops. Because it's weird because it's got like this really tall body. It's got like a tall frill here you can see better. Now that looks quite nice. Very vaguely Triceratops shape. Very tall skull. It's kind of like almost like Torosaurus size, which has the largest skull of any land vertebrate, which is pretty cool. Very similar. And you can see the tail's been shortened, so it's not quite as long. I think we'll just let you run off to get a better look at you when you're having a drink. There we are. Yeah, the feet are not right, as I said before. But yeah, that looks quite nice. You can see the more downturn of the brow horns. You can see kind of makes it a little bit more different than Triceratops, and then especially this very tall front that we get a good look at now. I quite like that. You can see the backs, the ridge in the backs also become more pronounced. But yeah, very minor edits to this one, but still looks quite nice. Yeah, the only things I'd really change is the feet, but coming up we've got something that changes that. So let's see, I have a drink. So all these Ceratopsians now that we've been covering, and the next, last but not least, ones have been done by MrTroodon, who released his big model and edit packs. So we'll give those a looky though. And now we'll be moving on to the last, but certainly not least Ceratopsian we're featuring today. We've got Spinosaurus. A very epic. Ooh, what the heck? Disappeared. Anyway, we'll see it probably go for a feed. You can see there with his friend Pentaceratops chilling there. We can see this one's probably got the most changes out of them all, because let's be honest, as much as the design of the Jurassic World one looked alright, that was just not accurate at all, and we can see the proportions here have been changed quite a bit. We can see the body's been made a lot more stout here, head's been shrunk down quite a bit, and it looks like there hasn't been too much of an attempt, but these holes in the fur would have not been there in life, because it would have been fully covered by skin, which could have been either covered in keratin or more likely covered in scales, big scales, to display or do whatever the Ceratopsians were doing with them. We don't exactly know. Yeah, we can see a lot of the changes here. The big schnoz here, the big nose horn here. The only Ceratopsians from Asia, so that means we've got the only later one from Asia. There's like Psittacosaurus and a lot of other smaller, really early ones from Asia. This is the latest one. Looks quite nice. Let's see it. And again, the feet would need to be changed. The back feet are actually fine, believe it or not, I think. Yeah, it's 4 there, and you need to put the digits up. Other than that, looks nice. And you can see the tail's been greatly shortened because it was really long and lanky. Just much better proportions. Now I'll watch this one eat. And we can see the little bit more correct. This one actually has nice feet. Little horseshoe going on. Just doesn't have the right digits with nails. Good old Penta. This one's actually been pretty middle, because the one in the game was already pretty good. It just needed some minor adjustments. We'll have a look at you eat. Can't forget you. This is honestly my favourite out of the 3 here. Nice to find they have a Spinosaurus mod that looks a bit more accurate to what it was in life. Just need to change the feet a wee bit. I think that was probably based on Getaway Truck skeletal, and I'm not sure what the skeletal this one was based on, but it looks generally pretty right to me. Yep, but so now we should move on to, we've got a couple of sauropods now coming up. We have the Politicus. Now this one's interesting because MrTroodon actually edited some things that now it's pretty much perfectly accurate from what we know. Aren't the sauropods always epic coming out of the hatchery? So now we'll wait for it to reach that clear patch there, hopefully. Looks like she's taking her time. Anyway, we'll have a look at her nostrils. So we can see here, look. The nostrils are right where they should be. So, well, the reasoning for this is because if we look at the animal with the closest kind of Mary's positioning as sauropods, the varanids or monitor lizards, they tend to have still have their nostrils at the front of the snout, like most varanids there. So the reasoned logic is that, and plus most other large animals, pretty much every land vertebrate has them at the tip of their snout, unless it's like some really derived reason, like elephants, where they have like this giant trunk, or but pretty much most 9 out of 10 animals usually have their nostrils at the front of their snout, or the nearies at the front of their snout too. But here it looks like they went more the varanid route and put them on, so now you can see that they're at the front now. And when we get to this little clearing here, we get to show off kind of the other major edits. So I'm just gotta wait for her to do her thing. I think we need a speed up option on the camera tools as well. So I'm gonna wait and watch it. And look, it's got the so there we are, and we can see he's got the proper feet. You can see there, look at that. Isn't that awesome to see? Got the proper feet going on. So we can see with most later sauropods, they didn't have any toes at all. Some of the diplodocids and the macronarians of the Jurassic usually only had a dew claw, like that. The rest was all fleshy. And even some later titanosaurs almost completely lost a lot of their toes, which is kind of weird to see. Then it just came like this weird fleshy hoof that you can see here, and it's quite rounded and it looks great. It really does look great. It's nice to see some proper feet. And then we can look at the back here, and we can see the back feet. They have these 3 toes, and they curve backwards like that to the side. It's believed to be sort of like that because if you look at like giant tortoises, they usually have to dig a nest usually. So it's believed that when a animal was digging for a nest or whatever other reason, it was easier to dig this way. So that's a cool little thing to see. They probably had a very similar breeding strategy in general. Just lay a lot of eggs and walk off, and hopefully a few survive. So now we're going to watch her have a nice little feed. It's really cool to see that they've got proper feet now. So we can see. Look at that. I think the skin's also changed a bit too. You can see these splotches along it. I think that looks quite nice. Breaks up the monotonous brownish red a little bit more. Gives it more of a speckled look. And the proper nostrils. So now we've got a pretty spot on Politicus. So this again was done by MrTroodon. See, very long, very, very long as usual. Okay, time for the next one. Now we've got another big sauropod. Now this is originally done by Draco, but someone made a skin over it, and I thought it'd be a good idea to show this nice skin. This is by Camilo, or Paleo, or however you pronounce it. Sorry if I butchered it. But yeah, we're going to have a look and see your wonderful skin. Now, the thing for me right off the bat is that these whites here are probably way too bright. So, other than that, I really like the patterning here. This is cool to have this splotch patterning on the back and the neck. And I think that looks really cool, especially on the back here. And the slight hints of colour here, like the orange and stuff here, that looks actually really, really good. And then we can see slight rotund there. Yeah, this is actually really nice. I quite like it. Really good skin. See this like leopard print patterning on here. I think the definitely the whites need to be toned down, just because it's far too noticeable. We can see these patterns down here. I think it's probably the stripes. Having both spots and stripes just kind of mixes it up a wee bit, so I think just sticking with one or the other would probably work well. Maybe like let the spots fade into the tail instead of using these stripes. But other than that, I think it looks great. It does look good. Just needs some minor things and it'll be perfect. And you can see the only real thing wrong with it now is nostril placement, but that's because the original model didn't place them correctly. As I've mentioned just before, nostrils should be at the front of the snout. If we use varanids as the reference. So yeah, it's going to take a little bit of a while for the Brach to move all the way over here. And some Dippy having a drink. So awesome to see a nice looking Dippy. See the Ceratopsians over there grazing. Well, you can do it. Let's have a drink. She loves to take her time, doesn't she? What else you got to worry about? She's only got to eat and drink and live. Quite cute. What you gonna do with that? There we are. And believe it or not, last but not least, we have from now, the most accurate dinosaur in the game. And I bet you're wondering what that is. It looks like it replaces Homocephaly, so it's not Homocephaly. But yeah, hopefully we'll be able to quickly reveal it for you now. Nope. Now we have a cute little adorable Taco. So we'll wait and see it run off to grab a meal. Look at it go! Running past. So get a good look at it. There we are. Let's see. We can see this is the most accurate dinosaur we now have in JWE. So you can see we actually know a lot about this animal from a preserved specimen that preserved even the colours and the patterns that the animal had. So you can see here it has this counter shaded pattern. It's not very strong counter shading. You can see it's just like at the top, it's very general, and you can tell from that it probably lived in a very forested habitat, because it's very easy. The thing with counter shading is that it breaks your silhouette, so it's harder for predators slash prey to notice you. So we can see here, because the light of the forest floor is not as bright or as contrasty as the open plains, is because there's trees everywhere, and that helps block out a lot of the light. So to really stay hidden in that kind of habitat, you don't need as strong counter shading, but it's nice to have some very general counter shading to help break out your outline, to help you either hunt or stay away from predators. So it's a very common thing in nature to have this kind of counter shading. Even in underwater, usually you see a lot of animals that have like a dark under half and a light top half, because when predators see them or prey sees them from under, they think it's just the light of the sky, of the water coming down on them, or even from the top, the darker is just the darker depths of the ocean. So usually it's a very common thing in nature to help try and protect yourself. And we can see also here, did I change it a wee bit? It's a cute. There we are, that fixes it. You can see his quite cute little face. We can know he's got little cheeks and such. You can see these big dappled like osteoderms, or just big spots on its pattern. And then we can see these quills. And now this is preserved in the same specimen. We know they have these kind of quills that stick out on the tail. And I'm really curious to see how they did that, because feather alphas and such are not possible. I think it might be just something sticking off the model. But no, that's really cool to see that in there. And these little quills have, and a bunch of other feather-like or feather themselves filaments and things like that, have really sparked a lot of debate on where feathers came from in dinosaurs, because there is contrasting kind of evidence there, because we have a lot of people think it only really appeared in theropods, but then we also see Titania long and a few other. Psittacosaurus is a good example, and a lot of other few ornithischians, like small ornithischians that have feathers, and plus pterosaurs even have level 3 feathers, which are, well, not feathers themselves, or pycnofibers, that look very similar to feathers, which you could argue is either convergent evolution, where two separate lineages evolved something for a similar reason, or it could be ancestral to all of them, and maybe feathers are older than dinosaurs themselves. So that's really opened quite a bit of a can of worms in terms of that debate, but it's really interesting to see what evidence comes out of that in the future. It'd be cool to see what we learn. And now we'll watch it have a little look. Hops on. Now this is a really early Ceratopsian. Well, probably not that base. Very early relative to things like Triceratops and Spinosaurus and Pentaceratops and all the other guys that you've seen early in the video. So quite cool to see him running around. We'll watch him go for a drink because he's cool. It's cool to have a dinosaur that we know so much about. Just so much about how it looks. It's such an interesting thing, because I remember when I was younger, we never know dinosaur colours, but look at this, we already know the colours of quite a few dinosaurs, from this guy to Microraptor to Borealopelta. That's just so awesome to see. He's hiding in the bush there. Perfect camouflage. So you can see the dappled light helps him break his silhouette more, especially in the leaf litter of a more tropical rainforest with a lot of dead leaves and stuff on the ground. That really helps break out his outline. You can even see that here. Now for a walk into the water. So he's going to go hide. Oh, it's having a cute scratch. Oh. Now that's adorable. Okay, now that's all the Ceratopsians done. Hello there. Maybe I give that a laugh. Give it a wee scratch. Okay, so now it's time to look at our carnivals. Now we've got all our herbivores down. So this is one by good old Digital Duck. I actually forgot who did the Psittacosaurus. Thank you for that. I'll always put them in the link in the description, of course. But yeah, that's pretty awesome to see. But now we've got a digital duck. Another paleo edit from him. We've got this time an Acrocanthosaurus.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to welcome an Acrocanthosaurus
And we can see changes.
in the park.
Run. And let's have a look here. We can see that from the original model, the skull has been quite... Because the original one from the pack was pretty much just a fat T-Rex, to be honest. We can see a lot of the changes here have been made. The skull's been made quite a bit thinner and lankier, because the Acrocanthosaurus was a very lithe Carcharodontosaur. Still a very big animal though, and it was most likely, instead of biting off flesh like tyrannosaurs, crushing bone and such as tyrannosaurs, it most likely would have been shearing flesh and was not had a stronger bite force, so it was very adapted for kind of just shearing off flesh rather than crushing. So we can see quite a long... We can see he's even got lips too. I love my dinosaur lips. Lippy dinosaurs are the best. You can see the little crests here. You can see the ridge has been made a little bit more pronounced, so it doesn't look like just a fat hump. It's nice to see that, cool in the design. That makes Acrocanthosaurus super weird. We don't know why it had that. Could have been more attachments for muscles. Could have been to display. We really have no idea. You can see now he's got accurate arm posture. So it looks like he's about to clap. And then we can see little tail, some bit of a longer tail, yeah. Very nice paleo edit indeed. Digital duck never fails. So we can watch there. We'll have a watch, have a drink. A little slow, I don't want slow. And I like how it keeps the skin. I really like the skins on the Acro, to be honest. Like this one in particular, I think looks really cool with the line down the back. Go watch it have a feed. So how can you not like that skin? It's really cool to see a more accurate Acrocanthosaurus. It's such an interesting animal. Now it's time to move on to our next carnival. Now this one's actually some quite recent science that's just been out this year, so I'm really happy to show this off. So here we can see we've got another edit from MrTroodon. We have got a nice Allosaurus. Now what makes this edit so interesting is that if we look at the skull here, it's actually just been... This is based on a recently described species called Allosaurus jimdasoni, which was only just described a few months ago, in 2020. And what makes that extra interesting is that it's based on two specimens, and one of the specimens that they described was actually Big Al, which is a very famous Allosaurus specimen for having so many different injuries, like broken ribs, had like a big lump of bone on the toe. It's just sustained a lot of injuries. And the main difference you can tell them apart is that the jugal is not as pronounced in Jimdasoni as in the most normal depicted Allosaurus fragilis, probably the most famous out of them all. We can see here that it's got not quite as pronounced jugal, which is the bone here on the skull, and is just a little bit lankier in terms of proportions of the skull. And another another way that you can tell the difference is that it's a lot older, well not a lot older, but found in older rocks than the later Afragilis. So you'd often find Gymnosoni in rocks that are a little older than Fragilis, not Fatalis. Which is pretty cool. It shows it could be the potential anagenesis or a species evolving into another. But no, it's quite cool to see new recent science shown off in the game like this, new species. Allosaurus actually has quite a few species in it. Are they going to fight? Well, let's have a fight. Why not? Come on, get it. We can see other general proportions that have changed. I think I'll wait till they stop fighting. I think he's gonna die. Hopefully it's over pretty quick. See other general proportions have changed a lot. I think they'll just go do their thing now. We can see that the body's probably been made a little bit more compact. The arms are a little bit more noticeable, made a little bit bigger. The distinction between the chest is made. I think the tail's also been elongated a wee bit. Just anatomy's just been generally fixed to just more like the real animal. Because the jugal thing is not the only thing that distincts the species from the other. There's quite a few other anatomical differences, but the head is the most notable. Pretty much a lot of the bones in your body are actually in the skull. It's just that the skull's kind of just sewn a bunch of bones together to make it a skull. And that's quite cool. Now watch her have a feed as well. Watch them have a fight too. I'm actually not sure what health they are. I wasn't planning on doing a fight this episode, but must have left the combat on from the last ones, so may as well. I really like how the Allosaurus eats, just... Plus it looks just... The Allosaurus always look nice, and I really like these scoots down the back and these spikes. They look quite nice. So now they're going to fight again. Looks like they are. Now let's go. One doesn't get killed in this, I don't really like the battles actually that much. It's just, it doesn't work well as a mechanic. But now we've got, last but not least, we've got, this is some really recent science. We just found this out a couple days ago. There's a published paper published on it. And yeah, we'll have a look at the most recent version of a very famous animal that everyone likes, Spinosaurus. So here this one was made by Wheat, who based this pretty much on Ibrahim or Ibrahim. I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm not good with pronunciation a lot, but this is based on the guy who's recently described the back in 2014 he described like the more complete Spinosaurus. In 2020 he came out and he found a tail of Spinosaurus, which shows that it looked like this, which is a lot weirder than everyone expected. We can tell that it has this very, very like long spines in here, so it looks very superficially like a paddle. So it may have been used to... It probably wouldn't be used to swim like a crocodile, because a crocodile tail is a lot more rigid and has a lot more muscle, and looking at the anatomy of the one here, it's not quite as rigid, so it may have swam... Actually, better reference might be more like a beaver or a platypus rather than a crocodile, because the tail itself was not as rigid as a crocodile's. But it's still pretty cool to see. I think there's been a lot more comparisons between things like sailfin lizards, for example, sailfin dragons, and Ballast is a good comparison to show that it might have not been for paddling in the same way as a crocodile, but more for schooling, which is not as hard, but it's maybe a little bit more, like even might have been just for display, but it really does help help sell it as a very aquatic animal, because Spinosaurus is pretty much the most derived spinosaurid, which is believed to be the very aquatic, as you can see here. It's with this big paddle tail, and now you can see the textures on this unfortunately are quite stretched out, but you can't really help that without replacing the textures. But yeah, this is still pretty cool to know. It shows that even now Spinosaurus is getting weirder and weirder and weirder, and now it's really cool to see that reflected in Jurassic World Evolution. So yeah, the type of swimming, ballast and things was more like sculling, so it's not as hard pushing, and maybe would have swam a lot more with its feet paddling. But no, that's still quite cool. Cool to see that science reflected in the game. So let's watch and have a fish. It's cool to see the fish feeder, because that's what probably most likely eating in life. Go for a drink first. Spinosaurus is just a very, very, very weird dinosaur. Very short legs, very big arms. Now this paddle, this weird looking sail. Oh, a little bit faster there. See it putting its head down. And then it sticks its head out. We have evidence to suggest that Spinosaurus had a lot of little holes on its skull, which are very similar to crocodiles, and they use those holes to have nerve endings in them to be able to detect fish, which is pretty cool. And I just want to marvel at the Spinosaurus a wee bit. Where are you planning to go off to now? Very interesting to see, even now, even just a couple of days ago, our understanding of dinosaurs can change very quickly, especially a specific dinosaur. Spinosaurus really is a weird animal, adapted for a habitat that we never thought dinosaurs managed to get into. We always thought that dinosaurs never became that accustomed to the water, but Spinosaurus came along and proved us wrong. See, what are you going to do? Let's see if we can get you sleeping. What are you planning on doing? Gonna go for a sleep, and it'd be a great way to end the video. Beautiful. So yeah, we've done today. This has been part 9 of the Accurate Dinosaur mod collection. Now, I've got something big planned for part 10, hopefully. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I really hope you guys like and subscribe for more. Okay, see ya, bye-bye.